I invite you to the thought experiment.
Hey, I'm game. Let's try it.
If it could be shown to you that the figure of the Nazarene was, in fact, as we believe, entirely mythical.
Oh, sure. I'm open to any evidence you might have that the entire thing is mythical, but to the contrary, most of the evidence points to the veracity of the claims of Jesus and who he was. But let's continue with the thought experiment, because it is a thought experiment. We have to pretend like Jesus was a mythical figure here.
As was the figure of his mother, as was the figure of Vishnu, as was the revelation supposedly given to the illiterate Arabian merchant, peasant, Muhammad, the man calling himself the prophet.
Okay, so your thought experiment is starting to take some twists and turns here. It's kind of hard to keep up. So you want us to pretend that the historical figure, Jesus, and his mother, which was also a historic person, you want us to pretend they're mythical, and then you immediately compare it to the figure of Vishnu, which is a literal mythical figure, and then compare it to the revelation given to Muhammad. You don't talk about Muhammad being a mythical figure like you want us to pretend Jesus is. You want us to talk about the revelation given to Muhammad being mythical. Your comparisons here in this thought experiment aren't really making sense. Anyways, let's just, it's hard to keep straight. Let's keep going.
As was the existence of Moses and the legend of the Exodus. If all of this can be shown to be an entirely man-made legend, would you really look at your neighbor differently? Are you telling me, or are you willing to be told, that you would then become a thief, that you would then become a liar, that you would then not condemn a rapist, that you would then have no knowledge of the difference between a right action and a wicked one? I don't think there's anyone in this room who could be so abject, so wanting in self-respect, so masochistic, so subject, and I'm coming back to this, so servile, as to believe any such thing.
Well, in this thought experiment, if we're going to claim that Jesus was a myth and his teachings are all mythology that just humans came up with, we're going to remove Christianity and Christian assumptions and Christian conclusions about our anthropological makeup. We're going to remove that from the equation, right? So Christianity assumes that we have an intrinsic moral compass that is there by design, that God's law is written on our hearts. So even Gentiles or pagans, which are not followers of the Torah, they do by nature things that are in the Torah. In other words, they have a sense of morality that is intrinsic to their design. So if we're not designed by a creator, if there's no God, then that sense of morality is not intrinsic. So my answer to this hypothetical situation would be no, I don't know if I would know that stealing is wrong. I don't know if I would be able to condemn somebody who does wrong. Who would I be to judge? I don't have any moral compass intrinsic to me that I can objectively say that's wrong, this is right. I wouldn't be able to do that. And would I trust society? I don't know. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. I'd have just as much justification to create my own system because there is no objective standard than anybody else would. In other words, if there is no objective standard that is intrinsic within us because of God's design, well, then we can create whatever we want. And that would mean that there would be millions of religions in the world that function as a source of authority for the way we ought to behave or not behave. If we do have an intrinsic compass, moral compass within us that is by design, it would then explain why there are so many different religions and philosophies out there because, well, Romans 1 explains it. We serve the creature and worship the creation and the creature more than the creator. We still have that moral compass within us, and so we come up with our own system of right and wrong that sometimes reflects God's ways, but it is not God's ways. It's our own ways. If everybody became an atheist today, the world would not be a better place. The world would objectively be a far worse place. There would be no moral standard, which is Christianity, which is the teachings of Jesus, teachings that historically have brought more good than evil in this world, which has done no more to advance culture and society than any other teaching. The teachings of Jesus, which gauge and give us a compass for understanding what God desires of us. If there is no God and we just do what is right in our own eyes, the society and the philosophy and the religion that would then be created to control. The one who gets to decide which is the right system will simply be those who have the power. The totalitarians, the authoritarianism. In this thought experiment, you would come away with these conclusions. Number one, without Christianity, without the truth of God revealed specifically in scriptures, but scriptures aside, if God does not exist and his morality and law is not written in our hearts, then no, you could not come up with a definitive standard of right and wrong. You feel like you would say the right thing. You feel like you would condemn a murderer or worse. You feel like you would have a moral compass. But the only reason you feel that is because you're not being objective with this thought experiment. Remove your feelings aside and truly play out this thought experiment. If you remove the Christian worldview, if it's just mythology and there is no God who designed within us a moral compass, we're just animals who are coming up with whatever we want to, the world would be a far worse place. The world would not be a better place, which would lead you to the conclusion, if you are being honest with yourself with this thought experiment, that atheism has nothing to offer that would better this world.